Welcome to my YouTube channel Sushant Reddy. Every week, I present my life lessons as an entrepreneur in sales, human psychology, and wealth creation. In this episode, I summarize all the important points discussed over the past 10 episodes, which I call the SLAP arc. Since we finished this arc, I thought I'll dedicate this episode to summarize the key learnings before we move to the next one. During the past 10 episodes, I've used key ideas from multiple books. I express my sincere gratitude to the authors of these books for helping me frame and structure my ideas. We started with the definition of wealth. Naval Ravikant, in his famous tweet storm, defined wealth as having assets that earn while you sleep. This simple definition helps us differentiate wealth and income. Earning salary, by this definition, is not wealth, but owning a stock is. Next, we introduced the factory of life. Imagine a hypothetical factory that creates all the good things in life such as fame, health, relationships, and money. The biggest raw material this factory needs is time. Wealth is the maintenance to make sure that the machines of this factory are effectively processing the raw material, which is time. Wealth is absolutely crucial because it helps us effectively utilize this important asset we call as time. Then we introduced the SLAP formula for wealth creation. SLAP is a combination of 4 components: specific knowledge, leverage, accountability, and patience. Specific knowledge is something that society wants and needs but does not know how to get. Society needs someone to understand this need, work on a solution, iterate and improve that solution, and provide an easy path to get to the destination. The body of knowledge that leads to this path is specific knowledge. Ability to sell products, services, vision, ideas, obsessive attitude with an ability to spend long hours on something, ability to analyze specific patterns and trends in data, and ability to code and automate complex human tasks are some examples of specific knowledge. We looked at the story of Mastanamma and how the two gentlemen Srinath Reddy and Lakshman K brought her cooking talent to the world by creating a YouTube channel. Srinath and Lakshman by themselves did not have the cooking skills but had the specific knowledge to identify someone who does, create high quality videos, and then promote them on the internet. This highlighted the point that specific knowledge is not just about skill but a combination of skill, mindset, and persistence. People without skill tend to think that it's a major roadblock to what they want to achieve, but skill is highly overrated. To discuss why specific knowledge is needed, we looked at the last 200 years history. Newer technologies are creating greater impact over a shorter span of time. Technology is causing an accelerated change in the society, and the rate of change in society is only increasing with time. As we move from industrial economy to an automation economy, the value of standard repetitive tasks is decreasing and the value of creative, innovative tasks is increasing. Society will reward those who can bridge the gap between the standard repetitive tasks and the creative tasks. To bridge this gap, we need to equip ourselves with specific knowledge. We discussed how to identify whether what you're doing has specific knowledge or not. We looked at 4 traits. The first is that specific knowledge is learned, not taught. What is taught usually has a straight line learning. At any point, you know what the next step is. Path to specific knowledge is more erratic and you go 2 steps forward and 1 step backward. Trait 2. Specific knowledge is not driven by rewards and incentives. It is driven by intrinsic motivation that is triggered by your pursuit of mastery, autonomy, and purpose. Trait 3. Your biggest advantage is just being you when you're pursuing specific knowledge. Trait 4. You're in a state of flow. We referred to Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's book called Flow. If we plot abilities versus challenge, we enter a state where our ability matches our challenge and we move in a narrow channel called the state of flow. As our abilities increase, we are motivated to take up even bigger challenges that further increase our ability. We discussed the PILE framework on how to build specific knowledge. PILE stands for persist, iterate, learn, and eliminate. 99% of our time gets spent in eliminating things we don't want to do and get to that 1% that we can devote our life to. Elimination is the process of moving from awareness to knowledge to specific knowledge. We stop learning once we get into the real world. This leads to a learning gap that widens over time. To gain specific knowledge, the process of learning has to be continuous. Anything worthwhile in the long term won't be easy upfront and demands a minimum failure rate. Only once you iterate and go past these hurdles will you be able to accrue specific knowledge. Lastly, if you assume 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 52 weeks, you get approximately 5 years. Building specific knowledge that a society of 7 billion people values needs persistence. There are no shortcuts here. That takes us to the second component we discussed, which is leverage. Robert Kiyosaki, the author of book Rich Dad and Poor Dad, has given us a simple definition for leverage. Leverage is an ability to do more with less. All of us have limited access to resources. When we effectively combine our resources such as time, relationships, capital, knowledge, and strength, we generate an output which is valuable to the society, and society pays us for that value. But since our resources are limited, the output we generate is also limited. If we can tap into external resources, we suddenly can achieve more with less, and that is leverage. We noted that mortgage, teamwork, investing, and a housemaid are common forms of leverage we use in everyday lives. Books, habits, giving, and meditation are some of the uncommon forms of leverage in our lives. The key secret to leverage is that it decouples outputs from inputs. That is what makes leverage powerful. We introduced the 3 types of leverage: labor, capital, and product. We give examples for each type of leverage. Labor is a crude form of leverage and needs a lot of effort to sustain. Not everybody can use labor as leverage effectively. That's why being a politician is one of the toughest professions in the world. Second is capital. It is more scalable and easier to manage, but it is accessible only to a few people. Labor and capital are permission-based leverages because you need to get someone's permission to part with their labor or capital. Newest form of leverage is product. Product is something that can be scaled infinitely with minimum or no replication cost. Product is the only permissionless leverage available. We discuss the unique aspects of product as leverage. Unlike labor and capital, it doesn't have gatekeepers. It needs small amount of labor or capital to create. It usually comes with a very high degree of specific knowledge. Cost of replication is almost zero. Propagation vehicle that gives product infinite scale is usually the internet, and product eventually attracts labor and capital. We discuss some examples of permissionless leverage to understand this concept. Code, YouTube, books are some forms of permissionless leverage. We are currently in a golden age of leverage where technologies such as cloud, e-commerce, digital marketplaces, YouTube, and a host of technologies are available to us. Next, we looked at patience. We said that patience is a belief in the power law of compounding. We introduced the power law as anything that follows the formula y equals mx raised to the power b. B adds the power to the power law. Compounding is the only nth order power law given to us by the universe. Power law follows 2 rules. Number 1, it takes a lot of time to manifest. Number 2, once it starts to manifest, change is rapid. Patience is the ability to not give up at the point when change is most likely to happen. Ironically, change is most likely to happen when it seems most unlikely to happen. We plotted drive versus time and outcomes versus time. As time goes by, drive tends to fall. When drive falls to a minimum and when success at that time is below the minimum success line, we tend to quit. If we can somehow slow down the drop in drive, then we can keep going and enjoy the benefits of the power law. Patience is the ability to push the drive curve slightly to the right and arrest the speed of descent. Without patience, the doors to the power law cannot be opened. We differentiated patience from procrastination by saying procrastination is biding time on an activity with no underlying power law at play. If the activity has an underlying power law, patience becomes a virtue, or else it simply becomes procrastination. That took us to the last component, which is accountability. Accountability is the ability to accept risk and fail in public under one's own name. The three fundamental ingredients of accountability are risk, ownership, and public commitment. We discussed a painting that depicted Cicero's story of Sword of Damocles. The sword is the risk, throne is the ownership, and the well-being of subjects is public commitment. So the king is accountable, but the minister enjoys all the power of the king but isn't really accountable. We discussed the circles of success and its different phases as defined in the book Principles by Ray Dalio. Circles have stages such as growth, failure, iteration, improvement, and then further growth. Our life can be broken down into a series of circles, one leading to the other. Forces of nature tend to bend the growth and move it towards the path of failure. Accountability is the tool that helps us bend this path again towards iteration, improvement, and further growth. We also differentiated between accountability and responsibility. While responsibility can be shared, accountability is always a single player game. This is because of the principal agent challenge described in microeconomics. Any team that comes together has people with varied levels of risk and reward. There are high risk, high reward people, low risk, high reward people, and low risk, low reward people. When accountability is shared, this mismatch of risk rewards creates a lot of pressure in the system, and the system ultimately crashes like a pipe burst under high pressure. We ended by talking about 4 ways of practicing accountability. One is start a full-time business. Second is to earn $1 over the internet for the next 12 months. Third is to commit 5 years to something without a plan B. Fourth is to invest in a project that risks a partial or a full loss of capital. In the next talk, I will discuss managing risk and probability in entrepreneurship. Thanks for watching. For weekly videos, you can subscribe to my channel or to my newsletter on Sushant Reddy. Until next time, stay safe and goodbye.